Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Teens for Business. I'm your host, Jackie.
I'm Kylin.
I'm Jack.
So, today I thought it would be really interesting to bring us back to our roots and to go back to exactly what our name represents. So, teens and business. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about business clubs and just similar activities at school that have that business aspect to them. Especially as the new year gets started, we want to encourage everyone to try some new things or at least get inspired by what we're talking about today and join just things that you really haven't considered or thought about before. And to that point, we have a really special guest with us today, Nikhil. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nikhil. I'm a senior from Austin, Texas, and I'm really happy to be on this podcast.
Yeah. Okay. So first, let's talk a little bit about our backgrounds. I know we're all interested in business in some sort of way, hence the Teens for Business brand, but business is really quite a large and encompassing field of different interests that can be combined. So what are we all specifically interested in, and what kind of angle in business really excites you?
Okay, I guess I can start. So for me, I'm really interested in finance. A lot of my extracurriculars, my research stuff is all related to finance, whether it be like financial literacy or investment and like things like that. And yeah, I just like started, I guess I was introduced to the stock market when I was a freshman, and then just like the interest blossomed ever since.
Yeah, I'm also interested in finance. I'm also interested in entrepreneurship. I'm a part of like a few like nonprofits outside school, and I take part in like the I guess like the business team. A part of that. I also have my own investing like portfolio, and I've been just keeping that since like freshman year or eighth grade.
Yeah, for me, I've always been interested in like the intersection between business and technology, and I'm really passionate about using that for sustainable finance. So like impact investing, using the ESG principles. I'm really excited to explore that.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are all really interesting things. So I think finance was a pretty big thing we touched upon. And to add my own specific interests, I think I'm also really interested in business and looking at social good. So just to bring it back a little bit, a couple episodes ago on this podcast, we actually interviewed Professor Tyler Rye from Wharton, and we talked a little bit about social hybrid ventures. And that's also what I'm interested in, looking how do you have a business that can actually help solve very pertinent issues in the world. So that definitely is something I'm interested in. I'm also interested in business and the intersection of law and public policy. So again, relating back to that aspect of social good. And like Nikhil said, I'm also interested in business and tech. So that really kind of is a broad intersecting place, but there's definitely areas where all three of them come together and meet. So we're all seniors in high school right now, and that's very quite interesting to have this last year of the journey right in front of us. So have you guys had your own business club or entrepreneurial venture at school? And whatever you've had or any experience of that sort, could you give some details about your personal experiences?
Okay, so for me, most of my extracurriculars and business clubs per se, they're like outside of school. But in terms of just purely at school, I've been a part of the Stocks and Finance Club at my high school since my freshman year, but I was just recently named the president. So like just this year, I'm the president of the Stocks and Finance Club. We kind of have around 30 members, and we just kind of like bringing like introducing stocks and finance, the world of investing, to anybody, like anybody that could possibly be interested. And I guess just starting from school, the most important thing is to, as soon as you get into high school as a freshman, you kind of demonstrate that interest by being a part of these clubs, by joining as many clubs as possible. Because the way you move up is to kind of demonstrate your interest, show that you're interested, show that you're passionate. And that's the easiest way to kind of get that leadership experience eventually from when you're a freshman. And I just think that, as a freshman, you probably don't know what you're specifically interested in just yet, but that's why there's so many different clubs on campus for you to try out. I just think that just a piece of advice would just be to kind of go out and as many clubs as you want to, just kind of put your feet in and like try them out. You never know.
Yeah, definitely echo those points. For me, my experience is a little different. I pretty much my entire business experience has been outside school. even though like I joined the investing club in my junior year, and in investing club, basically what we did is like we just like made presentations about certain like investing terms and stuff. But later we did get involved in the Wharton investing competition. So we were able to have a few teams to experience that. And as of like joining like a club for freshman year, I think this applies to all clubs, not just like a specific business club. But at the beginning, you really want to like experiment, see what you like really like. I didn't discover my business passion until like the end of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year. And initially I was interested in like tech, so I joined like all these tech clubs, and then I just realized, oh, maybe this is not for me. And then later it really helped because like I discovered my passion for business, later joined some business clubs, and some other ventures I have tried to do in school. Unfortunately, they have been denied. I have tried getting DECA into my school. We have BPA, and BPA is like similar to DECA, but it's like I think that BPA is stronger than Illinois than DECA or FBLA is, but I might be wrong on that. And I also attempted to get a national econ challenge team formed at my school. Unfortunately, that didn't materialize because our sponsor got busy.
Yeah, like Jack said, I really didn't discover my passion for business until around sophomore year. Most of my business ventures have been outside of school, so I have my own nonprofit, which I co-founded with some of my peers, and that's to enable displaced children to lead a healthy lifestyle. In school, though, we do have DECA and FBLA, which is Future Business Leaders of America. Um, I have been trying to kickstart a virtual chapter at my school, which would let us bypass some of the funding issues we have. And that really takes a lot of back and forth with a number of people, including like the principal. We have a director of career and technology for our district. So it's a long process, but in the meantime, I do enjoy being a member of DECA. It's allowed me to have some of the most like memorable experiences in my high school career.
Yeah, definitely. Like Nikhil, I do both DECA and FBLA at school, though DECA is kind of something I just contribute to, and like I especially help mentor some of the younger students looking at their projects. So my first year I did role plays and tests, and then like the past few years I've been doing presentations. So while I personally think like my DECA specific experience lies in presentations, like role plays is basically public speaking, so I really love helping like some of the underclassmen like improving, and like when they ever come to like ask me for suggestions, that's always something I really like doing with them. And but that's kind of just on the side, but I'm definitely 100% more involved with FBLA. So at FBLA I'm the chapter of my school and also a Maryland state officer, so like I get to look at like Maryland as a whole. Oh, and side note, I know like places like California or like Texas, Nikhil, like you, those are like really, really big like hotspots, including Georgia too. I think like some of those bigger states, like their state officer team is incredibly large. But if you're in some of the smaller states or even in those bigger states, I would 100% encourage people to apply for positions as officers, because I think you get such a really good experience out of it. And there's a lot you can learn, a lot of people you can interact with, a lot of people you can help as a whole. So I think that definitely is something that's really interesting. And then just a quick background, I'm pretty sure I'll talk about this later on too, but I'm also the president of Food Meets Business at our school, which is a club that looks at like the intersection of food and business. So kind of like something that's a little more fun, a little more niche, but at the same time you are learning and like investing. And then I'm also president of the American Business Club, which is kind of like an investment club, but a little bit more towards like the social impact side. So you learn about it, but you also learn about like how to do it sustainably, how to do it on that end. And something really quick that Jack mentioned on that I want to touch upon, he talked about the Wharton investment competition. So everyone, for all those people listening, this is a really good opportunity to participate in that. So last year, my team, we actually won like top 150, I think, out of a few teams. But I think like that's a really good opportunity. And I think the deadline actually closes on September 15th. I don't know like when this episode's going to be up, but like if it's still open, 100% you should sign up for it at least. Okay, so next question. Kaiwan, you already kind of answered this, but we would love to hear some of your more thoughts on this. But would you have any advice or personal experience with taking a business club into something that's just more than weekly meetings, right? Like something that's more than just showing up at noon and then leaving like 45 minutes later because, well, that's the end of the club. Like, how do you make it more than just 45 minutes of your week?
Yeah, so specifically with our school, we don't really have like a lot of like business clubs or big business clubs that are like centered. Like in the past, like we don't have DECA or we don't have FBLA or any of that. So we just have like one business club and one stocks and finance club. And they don't really do that many like competitions. I guess our school isn't really like business focused. So kind of what I kind of did personally was I kind of introduced, like Jackie mentioned, the Wharton Global Investment Competition, different finance competitions and business competitions, just getting more people involved and interested. I think just like helping and guiding them through these competitions is going to be allow them to like spend time outside of the club as well as inside of the club, just like focusing on the competitions and kept having like a sense of purpose, I guess, what they want to get done. So it's not just like a 45-minute class or like something like that where they're not like that interested. It's more like helping them like get through something and complete a project, which is why I think a lot of these competitions are so useful. Like Wharton, that's like really like there's so many different steps you have to do, so much learning you have to do throughout the process, but you're also like creating like an end goal. I think that's what's really rewarding about like these different competitions and why like Jackie said, why we so highly recommend Wharton Global Investment Competition is just for anyone, even if you don't have that much experience, it's just the learning process as well. That's my personal advice.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I have similar experiences with Kyvan with my investing club. Like I was able to introduce the Wharton investing competition in there. I later tried introducing the National Econ Challenge. It did get some support, and but unfortunately some circumstances popped up. So I definitely recommend like looking for competition to apply your learning. In investing club, some of the leaders, some of the exec board members, they make presentations about just general like investing terms and strategies. They also like they also hosted like a fictional investing game where you're allocated with some money and you if you win, like if you get the most profit, then you can get like a certain prize at the end of the year. So we did have those, but other than that, we didn't have too much. I think some advice. I know BPA, DECA, and FBLA. I don't know if they all like have this thing. I think it's called the virtual business challenge. But some people like once they have their like virtual business challenge, like at the end of the year, obviously they have to like present and stuff. But sometimes they can continue with that venture, right? Like I know a lot of people like when they like when they like kept like working with that venture, it eventually turned into like something that they could really use to make a social impact. So definitely you can like definitely find those like ventures, maybe turn that into a really good opportunity to have something very like entrepreneurial. Yeah.
Yeah, unlike Jack and Kywin, I haven't had the opportunity to be an officer in clubs like DECA or FBLA, but I can share what like I really admire about them, and that's like the opportunity to both learn and apply business knowledge, not just like sitting in a classroom for an hour every week. There's obviously like a lot of collaboration between like officers, school sponsors, and even the district, but that aspect of competing really provides students like me with an avenue to explore our passion for business. We also have like great trips, you know, DECA State and ICDC. If you qualify for those, it's not just competing, but like the overall experience of attending those events. I think it really like chisels you into more of a professional and more of an explorer, really. But yeah, like Jack said, the virtual business challenge too, I've done that in the past. And that's actually how I made it to ICDC. So I would say just exploring as many things as possible, using what opportunities you have at school or starting them if you don't have them, is really the way to go.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good point. And before I get to my specific advice, Nikhil, you mentioned ICDC. So for the past few years, I've been going to ICDC, but would you like to tell everyone listening a little bit about that experience? I personally loved it, so I just want to expand upon that part a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So ICDC, I went last year and 2 years ago, and it's probably been one of my favorite experiences just because it was one of the first times I traveled outside of you know, the US or outside of Texas, obviously without my family. And I really just enjoyed the experience of hanging out with friends, but also, you know, preparing for this big challenge, which it was for the first time I've really done something that big. But yeah, it taught me a lot about public speaking skills, collaboration, and just all the activities we did as a chapter there. It was really eye-opening for me.
Yes. So for anyone that doesn't really know what ICDC is, you kind of just get to go to wherever it's being hosted. It's California, Anaheim this year. Is it actually? I think it should be in Anaheim this year. But it's this place where you get to go like for 5-ish days a week and just go with your friends and like people from your chapter who also qualify. And it's a really, really good experience for DECA. And then FBLA also has something too that's like ILC, which is like their or no, National Leadership Conference, which is NLC. And so that's kind of like similar. And you go to these places around the country and you kind of just compete. And you get a lot of time, like obviously to prepare to compete, but there's also a lot of opportunity to make friends, and make like new friends, especially all over the country and internationally. But to get into like my personal advice, I think something that's really important too is A, take initiative, and B, kind of think outside of the box. And at some point, those two really do collide. But to expand on that first point of like taking initiative, is that like if a club doesn't exist, that doesn't mean that it can't exist, right? Like if you don't have that existing club, you can always like talk to your administrator, talk to whoever's in charge of the club, and at least try to like have it come up. And I know like every school is different from like the club registration rules, but if you have relatively more lax system, or if it's not like really incredibly arduous to get a new club in, then I think that's really definitely a good opportunity to see like where the gaps are and like what you can do to fill that gap, because you're probably not the only person interested in it. So I mean, I also go to like a really big school. I go to like Maryland's largest high school. So I definitely like with those 3,500 people, like 100%, there's going to be at least one other person who is interested in it. And then the second piece of advice that kind of does tie into like taking initiative is thinking out of the box. So I would say it's more like thinking of an idea and then taking the opportunity to actually do it. So our school has pretty strict rules on fundraising. So like obviously you can take donations, and then obviously like if you're FBLA DECA, you can collect registration fees from your members because that's like what the organization has you do. But outside of that, like fundraisers and those sales aren't really like allowed, but you kind of have to like think of ways like how can you collaborate with the school in order to do like what your club needs to do. So like for my Food Meets Business club, technically it's like food meets business, right? Like it's supposed to be fun. Like we bring in treats, like we're doing Dunkin' this week, so like we're going to bring in Dunkin' Donuts, and then we're going to talk about like that target kind of audience for Dunkin' Donuts. And but besides that, like because it's Food Meets Business, we also have like this investment competition, not competition, but like investment challenge almost, where we look at like different food companies and we look at, okay, like would you invest in this thing, like would you invest in that, or like, oh, that's kind of not great, like let's not do that, or things like that. And so you can take it outside of the box a little bit. And then we're also having like fundraisers with the school, like to show like how do you actually have a business. And like that part of the thing is like usually clubs don't do that because there's a lot of like admin rules. But if you're able to like take that initiative and like think like, okay, like how do I actually involve hands-on business experience, that's also a really, really good way to do it. Okay, so next question. We also did kind of cover this, but from a little bit different of a perspective, specifically for underclassmen who are interested in joining or starting their own business clubs, what advice would you guys give them?
Yeah, so I think this definitely like is different for different schools, but for my school in particular, it's a little bit hard to kind of start a club just because like there's gonna be there's already an investment club, there's already a business club. They don't really allow like specific like there are investment clubs, but there maybe you want to do something like in a specific category, like a niche club. They probably won't allow that. It's just if like if you're an undergraduate, my like I said, my biggest advice is to kind of like get into these already established clubs early and then try to like build up from there. But like if you are in a school where these like you are allowed to start clubs and you have something that you are genuinely interested in, then I would suggest you go for it. But like if you're just starting a club for the sake of starting a club, then this like I don't think there's that much of a difference in just kind of like joining an already established club and gaining that experience, especially as an undergraduate. It's like I think in 9th and 10th grade, what you're really trying to do is kind of learn. And then once you get to to 11th and 12th grade, that's when you can kind of like help others and be more of a leader. That's what I personally think.
Yeah, in my school, I think it is a little bit easier than what happens at Kyvan school. Basically, you have to think of a club idea, get a sponsor, and then you have to send a form out to gather enough interest from specifically underclassmen and juniors. Because like if you're a senior and you're making a club, you're gonna graduate next year. That's not gonna work. And also like my school is like pretty strict on making clubs. Like if your club, your proposed club is already like something really similar to like another club at the school, they'll probably deny it. That's what happened with me and DECA. Like we already had BP in our school, and so DECA was denied. So like if you want to like start a club, you can definitely go for it. You just need to reach out, take the initiative, reach out, find a sponsor. Probably, I would assume you should probably find someone who's not as busy. Like a lot of teachers in my school, they're also involved in coaching sports and some other clubs. So reach out to like a teacher that probably has like free time and also has built a good connection with you. And then they can also like actively take the initiatives for you and like push for those clubs. And if you are interested in joining like any like business clubs, already established ones, I mean, this again, I said this before, but this also applies to pretty much every other club. It could be a tech club, it could be an art club, it could be like a music club or something like that. But definitely like I think underclassmen, especially freshman year, is your time for like experimentation. Like you want to see what interests you, what doesn't interest you. Maybe like something you were interested in middle school doesn't work in high school because of maybe your schedule or just maybe just your interests are shifting. So you have the perfect time for that in underclassmen. If you get a club that you're really interested in, great. Then you can like keep pursuing to those leadership positions and like pursue your like passions potentially in the future. That'll be really nice. And also just from like a different perspective, also like if you want to do something like outside of school, like I have a couple of my own nonprofits. In fact, I share a nonprofit with Ivan, Kyvan, and Jackie, and that was like really fun to make. We went out to do some business competitions, and so like you can just there's a lot of like business opportunities around that may not be in school. You just have to like do like a lot of like research. For example, Diamond Challenge is a perfect opportunity for you to like pitch your own like either you could do like a business product or you could do a social venture. Like either way, that works. And there's a lot of other business competitions around. So those are also some really good opportunities. They're really solid. They're good opportunities to help you figure out, oh, maybe you're interested in business, and maybe this is something like that you want to tackle, but you want to get some feedback on like how your idea is. So you can take it to those competitions, get some feedback, maybe get some ways to improve it, and then maybe then is where you can like start taking initiatives, launch it, try to get some funding. You could ask for donations or go compete for seeding funds. Well, those are all really good opportunities for you to pique your business interest outside school. And maybe someday you could take that venture inside school. You can advertise it in like some courses that are somewhat related to the field that you're interested in, and that a field that venture would like help. So I think that's also a really good strategy for you to get like interested in business.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Jack said there. Speaking from my own experience, I haven't started a business club, but I have started a mountain biking club because I'm also passionate about mountain biking. So I know somewhat about the governance and policies that are associated with creating it. Say the first most important step is just to find a group of peers. I think Jackie mentioned this earlier, but finding a group of passionate peers who really share your dedication, especially towards business, because you can't really do it alone. The second thing is don't be afraid to advertise through any means necessary, like Jack said, because it takes a while to kickstart a club, but using the resources provided with your school, district, and community really helps. In terms of joining clubs, I agree with what Kylan said about underclassmen. That's really the time to explore and like figure out what your interests are. Me personally, I was joining as many clubs as possible. We have Mu Alpha Theta, which was like a math club, and STEM, which was like science, technology, engineering, just and even like Tinkercad, because I didn't really know what I was interested in until like I was a junior. Then I really knew like business was what I was going to pursue. So in terms of joining clubs, I highly recommend just experimenting. And with DECA and FBLA, those are some great examples of clubs you can start if you don't already have one. because I know everyone is interested, they're all attracted to that like competition type club where you have a lot of opportunities to like explore your interests and just compete against other people while doing it. So yeah, I would say those are clubs that provide people with like unforgettable experiences, and they definitely like would make an impact at your school. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think a really big thing that Kaiwen mentioned was that like joining clubs as an underclassman can really be useful. And I think that's really true. Even if you do want to start your own club, like if you have some really niche interest or if you see a gap in what your school currently offers, I think like even if you do plan to start your own clubs, I think it's still really important to join existing clubs that have good leadership position or like have good people in leadership positions, right? Like if there's a senior you think is like really impressive and like they're just kind of like a role model to you, I think it's really important to join those clubs and see how they're running the club, how they're doing like the things they do, how they kind of interact with that school community. And I think that's 100% really important, because as you run your own club, you can use those lessons or just use lessons that you learn from them personally and kind of grow that way. So like a club isn't really just a place where you like go there every lunch period and then you're like, oh yeah, haha, like 45 minutes and that's it. But then like it's also a really good place to like meet new people, especially meet like upperclassmen who are usually more than willing to help you out on if there's like any advice or like resume things or like internship things, because they kind of all went through that same experience. So I think that's 100% something. Like joining clubs isn't only to like join those 45 minutes every week or however often it is for that particular club. But that's just my personal advice. And thank you guys all so much for tuning in this episode on the Teens for Business podcast. Make sure you check out part 2 of this topic, where we'll be giving some ideas for potential business clubs you can start or where you can join at your own school. So I'm Jackie, and I'll see you there next time.